Hello there, this is Nanto Diaz. So I've recently finished the Fist of the Blue Sky manga and I want to give my thoughts on it. This isn't a proper review but more of just talking about what I just read. I won't be spoiling anything major in the story, so you can watch this video if you're on the fence about reading it. Now, I really enjoyed this manga. It felt like a step up from Fist of the North Star, which this acts as the prequel to, and was written and illustrated by the same two people. And while it does have callbacks to Fist of the North Star, this was written newcomer friendly and is pretty separated from the plot of the previous series. The plot of Fist of the Blue Sky is about Kasumi Kenshiro, a practitioner of an assassination martial art called Hokuto Shinken, which allows the user to tap the pressure points of his opponents and manipulate their bodies, ending in a bloody explosion. We see him as part of a gang in a World War II era Shanghai as he fights other practitioners of Hokuto in order to become the true successor to the style. Now, I really like Kasumi, and yes, I'm going to be calling him Kasumi to avoid confusion with Kenshiro. He's a lovable goofball who basically picks the funny dialogue option every time, but knows when to get serious and abides by a strict code of honor. I also like that he's more of an ass than Kenshiro, seeing as Kenshiro was considered a kind guy while Kasumi is part of a gang. I see him as the Joseph to Kenshiro's Jonathan. And speaking of part 2 of JoJo, I also have to mention my other favorite aspect of the story, the setting. I love the setting this takes place in. It takes place during World War II when Japan was at China's throat in Shanghai's criminal underworld. And while the Nazis do show up a lot here, the story spends a lot of time on the Sino-Japanese side of the war, which you don't see very often in media. And the war plays a major role in the story and not just as backdrop. Many of the characters are aligned not just with the gangs but with the armies themselves, and there are many instances of an army just interrupting fights or fights take place in military vehicles. Shanghai is also really well drawn in this. Just the amount of details in the buildings and the street is amazing. While I did enjoy the wasteland settings of Fist of the North Star, it did get kind of samey after a while. I preferred the various locations Shanghai had to offer for scenes, and it also reminds me of Kamurocho in Yakuza. Blue Sky also leans more heavily into the Chinese side of Hokuto Shinken compared to Fist of the North Star, most prominently with how Kasumi calls his friends his Pengyo, and the adaptation of the iconic Omaiwa mo Shinderu to Ni Ichinsula, which also translates to You're Already Dead. Now for the secondary characters. I really like the other characters in the Qingbang. Pan and Ye are great bro characters, and I especially like Pan given that he gets to interact with a lot of Kasumi's adversaries. However, Yiling definitely steals the show out of all of them. She's probably my favorite female character in the series with her backstory, personality, and how she bounces off of Kasumi. And unlike previous love interests such as Mamiya and Yuria, she can hold her own, though I'm applying this more to Mamiya given how she often gets caught while attempting to do something badass. Here, Yiling leads a band of thousands of men and has probably my favorite martial art in the series, Gun. The moment when she pulled it out against Kasumi's brother had me laughing out loud. The other martial artists were also standout characters. My favorites were probably Peace, Fei Yan, and Jong-woo. I can't really talk in too much detail due to spoilers and the fact that this video might stretch out too long. However, this is where some cracks start to form. If you've seen or read the previous series, or played a few Yakuza games, you would be familiar with this problem. Being too trigger happy when it comes to killing characters. Now, killing off characters may be a good way to keep tension and have the fights be meaningful, but when they die too often, and especially when you can see it coming just from looking at the scene, it can be hard to get attached to a character. And trust me, you will immediately spot when a character will die. This is most apparent in the second third of the story. It also doesn't help that while I like the new opponents, many of the encounters Kasumi makes feel kind of samey. Not helped due to the formulaic encounters Kasumi has, which won't be spoiled but should be apparent to the previous two groups of people I've mentioned. The martial artists also blend together much more than in the previous series. In Fist of the North Star, there were the schools of Nanto, the different Hokuto styles, Ryuga style, Gento, Hokuto Ryoken, and the guys that just mixed and matched different styles. Well, here it is just two main styles. One last issue I had was that the final boss for Kasumi didn't feel like a final boss, and more of just a last boss. Yeah, the fight was epic, but it lacked the build-up that made Rao and Kaio legendary. To wrap things up, I really enjoyed Fist of the Blue Sky. It retains the great fight scenes as well as fantastic artwork of the previous series, which you've seen here, but with a great new setting, great cast, and a charming new lead. This is a must-read for any Hokuto no Ken fan or anyone wanting to get into the series. I'll give it some time before I say for certain whether I prefer it to its predecessor. Now, if you like this video, please give it a like or dislike it if you didn't. Don't worry, I can still see the dislikes even if you can't. I have no idea if these are hot takes or not, so it would really help me out. Also, consider subscribing for more Hokuto no Ken content, and check out my other videos which are more power scaling related. I also finished the Ray Gaiden manga which I have to talk about, so stay tuned for that. This is Nanto Gias, signing out.